Hello and welcome to this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators Live TV. My name is Barry Shrier and I'm your host for these weekly TV shows. What we do is we bring to you every week some of the most interesting, leading, capable and passionate people around the world who are making enormous strides in adopting new innovations to improve healthcare. These episodes are sponsored by GIANT Health. So we'd like to thank GIANT Health and we'd like to address our audience to go to their website, www.giant.health. GIANT is a global community of nearly 200,000 people, everybody whose business is healthcare, technology, and innovation. GIANT would like to make a new announcement, which is that from the 17th to the 21st of May this year, there's a new exciting and high-profile important series of events called European Health Tech Innovation Week. These are 5 one-day events taking place in Liverpool on the 17th of May and throughout the rest of the week in Paris, Barcelona, Stockholm, and Berlin. These 5 one-day events are going to be showcasing the best innovation in Europe, showcasing the leading hospitals and the leading innovation hubs, and presenting to you examples of some of the best adoption of new technology and innovation in healthcare. All of this, of course, to achieve our vision, which is to improve the health and the well-being of people around the world by accelerating the adoption of new innovation and supporting healthcare technology entrepreneurs. So thank you to all of our many thousands of listeners around the world for dialing in, and we hope to see you at the GIANT Health events in May, European Health Tech Innovation Week. So this week, I'm very, very proud to introduce you to 2 incredibly interesting people who are going to talk about some of the work they're doing, and we're going to look at some of the biggest challenges in healthcare and some examples of great innovation. So Iain, hello, how are you today?
Really good, really good.
Good to see you. And hello, Claire, thank you for joining us.
Oh, hi. Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. Really pleased to be here.
So I'm glad to have you guys both on board. So Iain, very briefly, if you could just introduce yourself very, very briefly, and what are you doing? What are some of the big challenges in healthcare? And what are you involved in to address some of those?
So my name is Iain Hennessey. I'm a paediatric surgeon, but I'm also the clinical director of Alder Innovation Hub. And I suppose for me, one of the big things we're trying to tackle at the moment is health inequalities. How do we use technology to even the playing field for people?
Right.
Now, I think, you know, we're really lucky in the UK, and we have the NHS, and it's a great leveler.
Yes.
But things still aren't level. You know, we've done, because a big thing around Alder is around how we use data, how we drive better care with data. And when we look at the analytics of our region and we look at these heat maps, you know, put over our catchment areas,
yes,
you can see where the sick kids are, and a lot of it matches up to deprivation. So things are not equal. And how can we use technology to fix that?
No, that's a very interesting point. And we have heard on a number of episodes that, at least so the theory goes, technology innovation is an equalizer. It's a force for the democratization of the delivery of healthcare. So that's extremely interesting and, of course, very, very important. So looking forward to hearing more about that. And Claire, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thank you. Yeah.
Good. So tell us, please, who you are and what are you involved in, and what are some big challenges in healthcare that you're involved in?
Yeah, so I'm Claire Liddy. I'm the Managing Director of Innovation at Alder Children's Hospital, based up in Liverpool. I've slightly different than Iain. My background is in finance. I've got 20 years of NHS finance experience. So I very much work with Iain to bring the business part of our innovation centre to life. So that's my role at Alder. And in terms of the big stuff that we're working on at the moment, I guess just building on what Iain has said, we've been updating our innovation strategy, actually. So we've now got a new 10-year strategy. And our big goal really is to democratise healthcare. So really interesting that you mentioned that there, Barry. So we're really working hard to think about how can we use technology, how can we work with partners, small businesses, large corporates, academia, to bring new technology into healthcare and make it available in an equitable way to all of the children and young people right across the planet. If we can have impact, you know, with children in other countries, you know, that's the big challenge that we're trying to solve here at Alder.
Yes, yes, excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and it's such an incredibly important subject. I mean, I suppose at the basic level, everyone expects healthcare to be provided equally. That is to say, at least in civilized countries where you have a state healthcare system. But the fact that you guys are indicating it's not necessarily the case is very interesting. So what are examples of issues, Iain, where there actually isn't health equality? And number one, what are the issues? Number two, why is that?
Well, I mean, healthcare is a system, and you've got to be able to, to play a system to a certain extent to get the most out of it.
Right.
And when you're a child, that's your parents who are playing that system for you. It's your guardians. It's the people who look after you.
Yes.
Now, if you are very well educated and you know how to get what you need from things, then you can navigate these systems better.
Okay.
So you can get to the appointments. You can be organized. You can access the latest information. You can do your research. You can press people. So we've noticed. So, for instance, with asthma, Iainson is one of our professors of respiratory.
Right.
We have a higher than normal rate of children coming into the hospital with asthma attacks than the rest of the UK, and that can be linked to data showing it's coming from some deprived areas. And a lot of it is down to just the simple management of asthma. Take your asthma inhaler on time.
Yep.
Use a brown one and a blue one.
Yes.
If you're getting out of control your asthma, you need to have a bit of an intervention. You need to seek out the right people. And what I would love is that it doesn't matter who the people navigating the system are for you, that you just always get the best care.
Yes.
So if you could create artificial intelligence algorithms which notice that someone with your type of asthma should be seen more. Someone with your type of symptoms should be on more types of medication, to spot these things which can be hidden if you don't have someone advocating for you and pushing you. It's like an auto advocate is what would be nice. So it's how do you also make these systems so that you don't have these inequalities built into them as well. And I think technology is the thing which could be a great leveler here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very, very interesting. It seems in certain respects quite basic, doesn't it? I'm also intrigued about what you've just alluded to regarding the promise of technology. Claire, where do hospitals, or as an organization, where do they fit in? Can you help our listeners to understand that? Just for the sake of the discussion, why is a hospital shouldering this responsibility? Why, just for the sake of this discussion, why isn't it central government? Or looking back 100 years, why isn't it the church or charitable organizations? What's the role of the hospital in this bigger, if you will, public healthcare responsibility environment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the way we see it at Alder Hey, we are in a unique position actually,
right?
Being a hospital, because we are the place of the clinical problems, the needs, the challenges that are facing, for us, it's children and young people.
Yes.
So by being a hospital, being an institution, next to that clinical need, we're able to broker, the right partnerships to bring in either technology or bring in academia to work together with Alder Hey and our kind of brilliant clinical minds that we have here in the hospital, to make available for children new technologies that's going to make their care better, whether it be better outcomes, whether it be better experience, or whether actually we can work with technology companies to prevent kind of diseases or deteriorations and keep these children and young people safe at home. Our goal is to support our region, which is the Liverpool City region, to grow healthy children up, because healthy children become healthy adults. So we very much see our role as front, right and centre to that. We do take that, they call it like an anchor institution role on, and that is almost built into our DNA here at Alder Hey.
Nice. Yeah. What's that phrase you said? You called it something? We
call it anchor institution. So because we are the place of healthy care for children and young people in our city, we see ourselves as the anchor point to grow up these healthy children. And I guess part of that, job, I guess, is not just to fix children when they become poorly and unwell, but it's also to lead the way on innovation and research, so we can bring new discoveries, whether they be drug discoveries or technology discoveries, and make them available for children and young people. So we think that's kind of our job, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys are absolutely a shining beacon, I think, a lighthouse, and an outstanding example as a hospital group. So, Iain, has it always been the case? Has Alder Hey always had innovation at its core? Have you been involved in anything in terms of developing that over the years?
I mean, yeah, if you look right back to the start of Alder Hey, I mean, it was 1912 the place was first opened, and it was designed off the back of a Victorian poorhouse. You know, so Victorian poorhouses had lots of sick children in them, so they had a sick children's wing to it. Yeah. Now, off the back of being exposed to lots of sick children in Liverpool, it's a very industrial area. We developed the expertise in treating children's conditions. So we were in the first place in the world to ever use antibiotics on a child. We were one of the first units to actually specialize in pediatric neonatal surgery. So having surgeons who only operated on children and babies. Now, you think that's obvious, but in the past, any surgeon would just have a bash operating at on a baby. And as you can imagine, the results were not very good. So in Alder Hey, this was in the 50s, they were like, right, we'll put all the babies needed operations in one place and have the same surgeons operate on them. And the survival rates went up by about 80%.
That's extraordinary.
You know, so I mean, just it's simple intervention of just having people who are specialized in it. First place to do heart surgery in a lot of places in the 70s. So a really long history of innovations in healthcare. But I think the big accelerant for us was when we actually moved out of that old building, that old Victorian building, which I loved dearly, and we all loved very dearly. But it was old. And then we moved into the new place, which is like a spaceship. I mean, it is like, you know, it's like the NHS's Ferrari. It's got everything you could ever want built into it, from the latest operating theatres to MRI scanners and the rest of it. So it feels like that accelerant is what we needed, because we had those amazing teams of people, an amazing rich history, that democratization of healthcare as well, because Alder Hey is like a bit of a force field for Liverpool and the wider area, because it's, we've been looking after all the kids for all these years, but then we put it into this new body almost of the new hospital, and then things just took off. And that's where innovation at Alder Hey really started to accelerate. But 2013 we opened the first innovation hub, and we've been going from strength to strength since then. Brilliant.
Oh, it's a fabulous journey, and very impressive. And Claire, you mentioned that your background is in finance, but obviously you're involved with the Alder Hey Innovation Hub now. Do you see connections there, or do you see opportunities, or does your background highlight challenges in terms of finance on the one hand, and the world of business, and how innovation is funded, and then the opportunities and the challenges that you guys are addressing and creating in the Innovation Hub?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting for me, because if I'm honest, for a couple of years, I actually did both roles. So I was the operational director of finance for Alder Hey and the director of innovation. Now that, in some ways, was a bit like putting oil and water together. So in a lot of ways, the way finance thinks in healthcare in the NHS and the way innovation thinks, they don't mix. So some days I felt quite dizzy, actually. So I had to make a choice, which was the career I wanted to follow, and I chose innovation because it inspires me. And I think my background in NHS finance has really helped us in the innovation team and in making the innovation centre a success, because I know how to navigate the financial world and to bring investment into the innovation team. Because one of the challenges for many innovation teams in the NHS in the UK is R&D budgets. Traditionally, R&D budgets have been very, very kind of academic research focused, and not so much, you know, kind of late stage research, innovation, technology driven. So I've been able to support Iain, who's, you know, been working at this much longer than me, you know, over 7 years now, in how we bring investment into the centre to make us, you know, to propel us forward. So that's been quite quite helpful actually. But it's also, I guess, taught me kind of a new way of thinking actually, that actually I think the financial success, you know, of healthcare institutions is being innovative. You know, it almost seems crazy that that's not the case, but actually, if you look at businesses, Tesla, I don't know, you know, Amazon, the way that they are successful is by being innovative in how they think, how they operate, their mindset, their culture, their risk appetite. So for me, I think we've got, I've learned a lot being involved in innovation, and I think it's been really insightful actually. But I'm glad that I made the choice and went down the innovation road as a career path.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it's extremely interesting. And I think you have an important perspective where you have, how do you say it? You've been on both sides, so to speak, from financial management to innovation. I mean, arguably, Iain, innovation is about taking risk, and innovation often happens in small businesses. And whatever, Apple and Facebook, you know, were created by young people in their parents' garages and things like that. And of course, that's not only the way innovation works. And of course, many very large global organizations in healthcare, pharma, and medtech hardware are developing lots of innovations themselves. But innovation is about taking risk, isn't it? It's about trying new things. And Claire, how does that work from a financial perspective? Surely I can't come to you and say, hey, can you put $1 million into this high risk innovation concept we're wanting to develop, and the odds are very high it's going to fail. That's not financially sound, is it? Or, you know, how do you juggle these things? Maybe both Claire and then Iain, if you can chime in here.
Yeah, it's a great question, Barry, and it's one that actually we've been arm wrestling with for the last 5 years. Innovation, you know, is about taking risks. It's about rolling the dice, and it's about, you know, it's about experimentation. And not every, you know, and not every dice that you're going to roll is going to hit the jackpot. And I think having that mindset up front is really important. And what I've been able to do at Alder Hey is get our executive team and our board on board that we are going to need to have some of that mindset. But I think for Alder Hey, you know, the way we try and kind of operate innovatively without kind of putting large investments into R&D projects, because we just don't have the resource, is we try and do that through partnerships. Which brings a level of de-risking. So if Alder Hey, you know, we've got a lot of value in our children's hospital. We've got talent, we've got great minds, we've got access to the clinical problems that need solving. And that's what value, and that's what we bring to the table. And we look to industry partners, to academia, investors, entrepreneurs to bring the other part of the equation. So we bring the know-how, they bring the investment, and together that partnership, that deal, I guess, is what, you know, our model is in terms of how we innovate, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. So in one respect, you're providing an element of the innovation ecosystem which is required, but you're not necessarily single-handedly shouldering the financial risk of the innovation. That's done in collaboration with partners. So to be crude about it, you're not taking all the taxpayers' money and gambling it single-handedly. That's being, if you will, shared out with partners. Yeah, right. Very interesting. And yeah, Iain, your views.
Yeah, because for me, one of the big things about innovation is you're going along, you're doing one thing, and then you notice something else. Now, the classic NHS thing is ignore it, keep on going. Okay, but the thing that's nice about innovation is you're like, oh, hello, what's that? And then you go, let's just do it.
Yes.
Okay? And then you get your partner and go, oh, we've just noticed this. Do you want to come and do it? And then we go. You know, and it's that kind of it's not spontaneity, is maybe not the right word, but that ability to pivot very quickly, and go for something, but also be able to get some resource into it by bringing in your partner. But it requires a lot of good communication, a lot of ability to spot things and go for it. And that's something which I found was difficult in the NHS, especially to start with. When we were using some of the NHS project management methodologies, I remember, because I was getting in a lot of trouble at the start, because the project managers were like, Iain, this project's completely red. I was like, oh yeah, because I've stopped doing it. And they were like, well, what do you mean you stopped doing it? It's like, yeah, it wasn't a good idea. We stopped it. We're doing this instead. And like, well, we don't know anything about that. And but actually, these things turned out. And if we'd not, you know, pivoted and gone for it and kept on just piling resource into something which wasn't working,
sure,
we just wouldn't have got there. So it's that ability to be agile and quick and spot an opportunity, and to create an ecosystem of people that can help that to happen, you know, from within the hospital to the finance, to the project management teams, to the partners you bring in. It's key to be able to do it.
Yes, yes. It does sound, though, Claire, like Iain's a bit of a rebel and a bit of a troublemaker. I'm not sure if that's a fair assessment. Is there? How do you reconcile these things? What's her name? The founder of the Body Shop, Anita Roderick, who, of course, was an extremely talented, innovative, entrepreneurial person. And if I recall, she made acceptable the concept of hiring the square pegs who wouldn't fit in the round holes. And that was a core issue in innovation. So what are some issues there? I mean, Iain, if I understand correctly, you know, you're comfortable going against the grain.
Yeah.
By definition, large healthcare systems can't have too much going against the grain, can they?
Yeah, so you've got to be very careful with how you do this, because at the end of the day, hospitals are set up for a reason. They have to provide good standardized care, which is safe. That is their core function.
Yes.
And so you cannot mess with that machinery too much.
Okay.
Because then, you know, you don't, you know, you wouldn't want a hospital run in the same way that Uber was at the start of its thing, you know, because there's standards, you know,
yes.
that you have to meet. I mean, this is very important stuff. But at the same time, you need to have that ability to go, right, okay, what is that over there? And to go and explore it without, you know, completely disrupting the core functionality of it, which
yes.
is why it's important for hospitals to have an innovation capability, which allows it to explore these things without disrupting the center. So although, yes, I've just made myself out to be a bit of a rebel and a troublemaker, I'm not that much of a bad boy, really. I'm relatively rules-based as a person, because I'm a surgeon at the end of the day. You know, and I'm quite a boring surgeon as well. You know, I use tried and tested techniques. I don't tend to do anything too fancy.
No.
But in innovation space, you know that if you take a risk, which, you know, you've got appropriate de-risking strategies in there, but
of course
they often come off. They often come off, and then you generate something which is great. And it's being able to capture that. I think it's key.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. What's your experience, Claire, in terms of the collaborations that you guys are building and bringing in outside parties? Do you work with startups, or do you work with established companies only, or does it have to be a very, very large global business that has the bureaucratic capabilities to match your large healthcare system bureaucratic structures?
Yeah, I guess being really honest about it, we're not fussy at Alder Hey. You know, we're really open to work with anybody who's got something that's interesting,
yes.
that could add value, I guess, in terms of care for children and young people. So our model that we run at Alder Hey is open innovation. So we, you know, as Iain said, you know, there is a need to be very curious and to be rebel-like, you know,
sure.
and to have a bit of rogue in an innovation team's personality. But we do have a system, a methodology that we use. So we very much start with the problems in the hospital, and then we technology scout. So we look out to the world globally to see who's got the right technology that might solve our problem. You know, and I guess, you know, some of the technologies are with SMEs, local and international. Some is with, you know, scale-ups. And often we do talk a lot with large corporates.
Yes.
You know, there are quite a few big brands that, you know, we're very keen on working with around our next strategy. You know, we need experts in data and connectivity, data
sure. transmission,
visualization, and analytics. So we are working at all levels, actually. So
nice.
I think that ecosystem, which has got kind of lots of different personality and lots of different flavors in it, is what makes success.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole puzzle and filling in all the pieces, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Claire, how does this discovery work? If I understand you correctly, it has to start with identifying a challenge or a problem inside the hospital. Is that correct? Rather than somebody knocking on your door saying, hello, I have this new invention. Would you like to buy it from me?
Yeah, so I think we do a little bit of both, but our preference is to focus on the real world problems that are in our healthcare system. So not just in the hospital, Barry, you know, a lot of the problems, as Iain described, might be in the community, they might be in the mental health area.
Oh, okay.
You know, so they could be in social. So we do like to keep it quite open.
Yes.
But what we've tried to do is prioritize to what are the big real world problems facing children and young people in the Liverpool City region. And there's probably three big areas that are kind of the metrics, as Iain described, are quite poor. One is mental health in children. The second is obesity. And the third one is respiratory. So right now, our kind of priority is to find technology-driven solutions for them problems. So that's kind of how we work. So what we do is we will listen to technology companies who have a technology that might solve their problems. So we're happy if they knock on our door and say, you know, we spoke with a company called Apparito, who are an SME based in the north of England. They have a technology which is in an R&D research phase that would solve one of our problems. So we are quite open door to talk to technology partners, but our kind of way of working is generally a co-creation. So we want to work together with their technology partner to bring that technology into healthcare, be part of the development of co-produce, maybe help with the research, and also maybe help with the adoption and the commercialization as well. So we try and do the whole piece, actually.
Brilliant. No, that's extremely interesting. I'm still not clear though. Iain, can you elaborate on that? Where does the problem start from? How is it identified? Do you have committees once a week? Do you all get together and say, okay, my problem is the following? Or what's the structure and how can that be replicated around the world?
There's a number of different ways that the problem can come in. So we've got an open innovation portal. So there's a link on our website that any member of staff or anyone, in fact, can say, look, we think this is a problem. And that will come into our software, which we have made and designed, which is part of our project management. So, you know, an idea will come in, it'll then get triaged, and then it'll get validated as actually a problem, and then we work it up as a team.
Yeah.
But there are many other ways that problems come in. So for instance, here's one of my favorite problems. I love this one. We have one of our charity ambassadors, Lewis, and he's fantastic. I love this little lad. And he has only 4 fingers, and he could not get cycling gloves to fit because he had only 4 fingers. So his mum emailed me, and I thought, okay, well, that. And I got one of our team, said, oh, what can we do? And he went, and Jack went off, and he found a high-end mountain biking company who then made some absolutely beautiful, bespoke 4-fingered cycling gloves for him. You know, and it's actually got us thinking about how do you make because there's lots of things, you know, which are designed for your standards sizes and hands. You know, how could we? And it built from there. So although that one actually didn't come in through a specific system, the other way you can have things coming in is you have companies coming to you with a solution, and then you can sit down and go, actually, okay, we like, you know, we've had a look at it, but what problem are you actually trying to fix? And then we can go to the department and go, right, they made this solution, we think that's probably not your problem, tell us about it. And so you can actually go and actively ping for what the problem is, as opposed to doing it passively. So there's a number of different ways that problems can be identified. But the problems are key.
Do you discover any ways of, what's the word for it? You hear a lot about, in engineering and in innovation, you hear a lot about solutions looking for a problem, so to speak. Is that an issue for you guys? Claire, do you have people knocking on your door saying, hi, here's this amazing solution, but in fact, it doesn't necessarily resonate with any problem or challenge that you guys have? And how do you deal with that? And how do you redirect those passionate innovators to be problem-centric instead of, what do you want to call it, product or solution-centric?
Yeah, I guess we have a lot of that, and I think, as Iain described, you know, there's a filtering process, you know, where we, you know, our innovation centre is not a front door for sales. You know, that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in discovering new technologies, not buying them generally. So we filter through, and as Iain says, we might find a technology that is pitching for one solution, but we might be quite curious that actually maybe the technology is good, but the solution, but the problem it's trying to solve isn't the right one, and we might still want to engage with that company to talk to them about a co-creation, perhaps around how we can bring their science or their technology into our centre to work with us on a different problem, perhaps. So that's kind of something what we do quite a lot of, actually, Barry.
Yeah, well, that seems quite efficient and obviously a lot more effective. Iain, in this concept that Claire just mentioned, co-creation, what's that story you told me about? Did you go to an event that was an event for sensor technology, not necessarily relating to healthcare? And did you discover something interesting, and what turned out of that?
Yeah, so I love that one. It's there's a Liverpool is a sensor city. It's big for sensor technology.
Okay.
And we got the opportunity to look through some sensor books, which have different types of sensors that are available. And we saw this sensor that was a lactate sensor, which is really important in healthcare, is testing people's lactate levels.
Right.
And if you could know it minute to minute, it'd be incredibly valuable, because it's a proxy for how well the tissues are being perfused with blood. So for instance, we would know if someone's lactate was going up, that they're not perfusing their tissues very well, or if they've just had cardiac surgery, that the pump's not working well, that we might have to intervene. Okay. And we have terrible problems with taking blood off children to sample in a lab. And they're very small, the babies. We don't have a lot of blood to remove.
Yes.
And we found a transdermal lactate sensor, so a stick-on sensor that would do this. And we're like, oh my God, where is that being used? We've never seen that before. And it was being used on cows and these herds in New Zealand. And we were like, what veterinary use could you have for the lactate sensor? And they were like, oh no, it's when cows' lactate levels are high, they don't taste very good. So we wait until their lactate levels are low, and then we kill them. And I was like, oh God. I was like, well, but if we could use that technology, we can find a better use for that technology. So we went off and then did a big research project around using transdermal lactate, and we found that you could actually do it on humans. So we're still trying to push that technology on, to more human trials on it. But it was just amazing, just that serendipity of, oh, that's useful. But we see that all the time. That's why I love going to other conferences. So if you go to a travel conference, you'll see some booking software. They're like, well, that's what we need for outpatients. Or you'll see you'll see something in in the type of antiviral code. Here's one that meat packing industries have cameras that can tell if meat is infected just by looking at it. And we're like, that'd be so useful. We could use that in hospitals.
Is that possibly applicable for human tissue?
Yeah. So and the thing is I know that I can look at a wound and tell if it's infected, because I've just been trained to. And there's some very experienced nurses who can, just from the smell of a wound, tell you what the bacteria is. They'll just know. So could you make a technological equivalent of that?
Right. Would that be, for example, pattern recognition and applications of machine learning to replicate what you have learned in your career and how you are interpreting the visual image there?
Yeah, there's a nurse in our neonatal unit called Colette, and she knows when the babies are going to be unwell. She just knows.
How extraordinary!
So if she tells me they're not right, she doesn't know why they're not right. Right. But she'll tell me they're not right. Yeah, I always take the trainees aside and say, if she tells you they're not right, they're not right. Because if she couldn't tell, I'm sure she doesn't know why. But her instinct is so good. Yeah,
there's tacit knowledge there, which perhaps has some, how do you say it, algorithmic, identifiable origins. If only we could identify them.
Yeah, we did some research into that for surgery, because you can tell how good a surgeon is by watching them operate. It's something about the way their hands move and the fluidity of it. But we actually did some motion metrics on it, and the motion metrics are very different in someone who's inexperienced versus experienced. You can measure it if you look and use the right type of machine vision.
No, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Hey, well, look, you guys, we only have a few minutes left. Although, like I said at the beginning of the show, I wish we were sitting down in the pub right now and I could order another round of drinks and we can continue this incredibly interesting conversation. But if we could summarize in a few minutes, what are some of the lessons that you guys can share in terms of the innovation journey that Alder Hey and your incredibly impressive and successful Innovation Hub have accomplished over the years? Let's say, for example, we have listeners around the world, maybe even representing hospital groups in the developing world. What are some basic lessons that you'd like to share with them? And what are some visions of the positive and hopeful future that you'd like to convey to everybody working in innovation, and in particular in hospitals around the world? So, Claire, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess as my biggest learning over the last few years, having the kind of the opportunity to work with an innovation centre, is how important partnerships are, and being really open to forging partnerships. I think anybody who wants to innovate on their own, potentially that's a high risk strategy. And I think finding the right partners with the right strategic fit is my biggest learning, and what I would recommend to others, Barry.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And we certainly find the exact same thing in the world of business. And so that's very, very helpful. Thank you. Great idea. How about you, Iain?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gets me is when you ask for help, you tend to get it. And especially, during COVID, it was a case of like, help. We just went out to our network, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, because people genuinely want, because in healthcare, it is a noble cause. You're trying to fix people. And in pediatrics, you're trying to fix sick children. And if you ask people for help, generally you get it. And then it's amazing what can come from that.
Yes.
And some of especially the people that are passionate about it, normally who've been affected by it themselves. If you can find these people that have got that passion in them as well, I mean, that's where you really get something flying.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very, very good point. And I suppose there might be a natural reluctance to ask for help, but always good to keep repeating that. And Iain, on that theme, I've actually got this pain in my elbow. I was wondering if you could help me. But,
you're slightly at my age bracket.
Oh, come on. No, sorry for being cheeky, but look, you guys, this has been so incredibly interesting. And on behalf of everybody in the GIANT Health team, and of course our global community, GIANT Health is nearly 200,000 people around the world now. We love bringing the interesting, expert, and passionately committed people who are successfully driving healthcare innovation and improved healthcare outcomes. We love bringing people like both of you on board. And so once again, thank you very much. I wish we could talk for a lot longer, but I hope we can continue this discussion. Obviously, we're very excited about Alder Hey and the Innovation Hub, and both of you being involved in our event on the 17th of May. So that's very exciting. We'll be speaking to you, of course, about that more over the next few weeks. But until then, Claire, thank you very much. And Iain, thank you very much. We'll have your contact details on the website, if that's okay. Not necessarily your personal phone numbers, but whatever information you want to share with us. And we invite all of our listeners around the world to take up the incredibly valuable and appropriate messages that we've learned from Claire and from Iain today. Messages regarding the importance of partnerships and the value that can be achieved in focusing on partnerships. And obviously what Iain mentioned regarding the willingness quite simply to hold your hand up and to say, look, help, and to be open about that. And this whole co-creating theme is so important. So Claire, I've learned a lot actually today and found this very inspiring. And likewise, Iain, every time we chat, I find this very educational. And I'm looking forward to learning about my lactose levels sometime soon with this patch you're going to send to me. No, but you guys, thank you so much. This has been very, very interesting. And of course, also, I want to thank our sponsors. Our main sponsor in these shows are produced in collaboration with GIANT Health, www.gianthealth. Please, everybody who are listening to these episodes, we invite you to participate in European Healthcare Technology Innovation Week, 17th to the 21st of May. Please look at the GIANT website, www.giant.health, and we invite you to collaborate with us. And we also would like to thank our additional sponsors, Vodafone Business and Barclays Bank. We love working with you guys. Your sponsorship is valuable to us. And we also want to thank all of our listeners from around the world. This has been this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators Live TV. My name is Barry Shrier, and I'd like to thank Claire and Iain, and we're looking forward to speaking with you guys further in the future. So thank you and goodbye.